Welcome. This podcast is an exploration into being human and what's possible when there's less attention on the noise in our heads. Warning. While listening to this broadcast, you may experience moments of deep peace, sighs of relief, personal insights, or long stretches of dead air. Do not be afraid. This is normal. Under the Noise with Wyn Morgan and Kate Roberts.
Welcome to Under the Noise and our 100th episode. I'm Kate Roberts, and I'm here with my co-host, Wyn Morgan. Hi, Wyn.
Hi, Kate. Happy 100th episode.
I know, that's crazy.
How have you put up with me for 100 hours-ish of these conversations?
I don't
How
know.
have you
And
managed?
it's actually more than that because I do the editing, so I get to hear you a second time. So it's more like 200.
If that doesn't mean you're going to heaven, I don't know what does. I mean, that's penance for anyone in life.
So how are you, Wyn?
I am well, thanks. Still have a sore thumb. If you haven't heard on episode, I guess the one before 100 is normally 99, right? On episode 99, I did talk a little bit about it. So there we go. But it's still a bit sore. But getting better, which is good
I'm
news.
glad.
Other than that, I'm well, thank you. I'm well. Although it's a little bit cold tonight, if I'm going to be really, So it's kind of, where are we? Well, it's December, mid-December. Yes, I've had the heater on in the office here all day. And it's starting to get bearable. It's cold.
That is cold.
Mm-hmm. And you're in Florida. Not cold.
It's literally perfect.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, maybe 60s, 80s, 60s, 80s.
60s in the night, 80s in the day. Oh.
This is our gorgeous season. Well, actually, I think Florida's gorgeous seasons are every season, but a lot of people would not agree with me. Some say it's too hot, but with the hot comes these rainstorms every afternoon. I don't know. It's kind of perfect.
I think the high today was 36.
Oh.
Yeah. Something like
Fahrenheit?
that. Fahrenheit. Yeah.
Oh,
if it was 36
wow,
Celsius, I would not be wearing a sweater. That's for sure.
That's very cold, Wyn.
Yeah. So what's that? 40. Yeah. It's somewhere between 3 degrees Celsius today was the high. Yeah.
So we were chatting.
We were chatting. Now, I wondered, given that we just started talking about Florida and weather, whether we wanted to talk about that first.
Florida and weather?
Yeah.
I think we should.
Event that is happening
in
Florida.
It's the best time. So exciting.
Drum roll. You better do the drum roll. I can't.
I don't know if it'll pick it up. I don't know if you can hear it in the mic. There's your drum roll.
That was a drum roll. So what are we announcing, Kate?
We are announcing our 2023 Under the Noise retreat that will take place in Florida next year sometime. Details, dates, all of that will follow.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Me too. Very exciting. Now, your partner said something, didn't he, about this, which I found quite funny.
He did. He said, "Oh, I'll get to meet Wyn." And I said, "I'll get to meet Wyn." For the first time.
We've never met in person. I know, isn't that nuts? It's crazy. It's crazy.
It is
Having
crazy.
known each other for what? How long have we known each other? 2.5 years?
Yeah. About that.
Yeah. So you can get to meet us too. As Kate just said, details will be coming, but it'll be on the Gulf Coast of Florida during 2023, and details we'll send the details out early in 2023. So we'll finalize some plans on the exact dates of that. If you're interested, they're coming along. And it'll be, I don't know, 2.5, 3 days in that region of relaxing and taking a look deeply into what's under the noise for you personally. And have a really good time in spending time under the noise, not in the noise for you. Let us know. Email us for to register your early interest, if that's the right phrase for it. Because there's only a limited amount of space that we can have to host this. And Kate will be organizing the logistics of it on how many people, etc. So that is exciting for next year.
That is exciting.
Yeah. And if we don't get along, I remember you saying that you might feed me to the alligators, right?
Well, true? It is mating season. They're very active next year around that time.
All right. Well, that's not one of my hobbies, mating with an alligator, nor being eaten by one. So, yeah. Give them a wide berth, I think.
Oh, you're going to scare people away, Wyn. Well, not everybody likes the alligators.
They don't, but they exist, right?
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
In my only time in Florida thus far, which will be 20 years. When I come, it'll be 20 years since I was there in the summer of 2003. Me and my nephew, who was then 12, did all the theme parks. He was the grown-up on that trip. And I was the kid, as I'm sure it wouldn't take much for you to imagine that. I remember we drove from Orlando out to Kennedy, the NASA center, and we would be driving along, and then we'd see at the side of the road these alligators just like soaking up the sun next to the little waterway, minding their own business. Yeah, so if you're afraid of alligators, it's okay. They don't do much, as long as you don't bother them. Apparently. But you're the expert.
Oh, I'm not an expert, but I'm a lot more comfortable with them hanging out in the water and than I used to be. But yeah, they're just a part of life here. But hopefully that doesn't scare anyone off from a under the noise retreat.
And if it does scare you off, this is the perfect place to come and get rid of your phobias.
Look at what you're offering. That is not an offering.
It is. I know that this can remove phobias. Totally. But not in the classical way of removing phobias, which is, okay, well, let's go and pet an alligator then, because then you'll get over it. No, you don't have to do it this way.
Oh my gosh, nobody's going to sign up for this if you keep up.
I'll shut up right now. One thing I was saying to someone earlier today, hey, the good news is, I remember hearing something or watching something on TV back in the late 80s that somebody said, hey, when you're in a hole, stop digging. That's your signal to me. Hey, Wyn, stop digging. Okay, cool. Your turn to talk.
But we did talk about a cool idea for our 100th episode.
We did.
That if this was our last episode of Under the Noise.
If it's not. If yes.
What would we want people to know about that space under the noise? And we didn't plan anything out. I didn't make a list in my mind of things. I'm sure you didn't either.
And I can't write a list still.
Oh,
So I
that's right.
haven't written a list.
If I can pull your injury into every conversation.
I still cannot use this thing.
You crack me. So yeah, so we actually didn't plan a single thing of what we would want people to know. So this is really coming from us in the moment. You want to get us started?
Thanks. I felt fine until now. Now it's going to be up to me to think. Let's see. Here's what I would wish everyone knew. Under the noise, you're okay. And can't be anything other than okay. Even when you're in your noise. Even when the noise looks like it's real, something to attend to, that it's giving a lot of potentially painful stories about you, your life, other people, the future, your past. Underneath the noise of that, you're always okay. And the noise doesn't need to be fixed, only understood.
That's a good one.
I'll go now. Thanks. I'll quit while I'm ahead and see you later. So over to you.
There's something that I've seen for myself that has changed my life in a way that I never imagined would be possible. And it didn't come in one big insight or some huge, epiphany for me. It never did. But there's a level of and this may be even just piggybacking off what you said, there's a level of okayness with all the different experiences of life. That I've seen, that I know is possible for people. For everyone. That our lives don't have to be or look a certain way. That different experiences, whether it's joy or happiness or fun or excitement or grief or loss or completely caught up or pain, physical pain even, that there's this relationship with life in all of the ways it shows up. That there's a deeper okayness that's available. no matter what we're seeing or going through. And I spent 40 years trying to control and manage, and maybe even to the point where I spent time making my life so small because I didn't realize I could handle all of it. So for me, that's been huge. And what I would love if our listeners, if they haven't already, got to experience for themselves.
One thing I found incredibly valuable for me to see, and I'm going to caveat that sometimes I really forget what I'm going to say next. I can't get life wrong. I can't do me wrong. Which is another way of saying in my words what you were saying about life itself. We get to live it. It's not about getting it right or me being the best Wyn Morgan I can be. That takes care of itself, in my opinion, and what I've seen for me. And that's taken so much of the thick, messy noise away that it'll still happen, but I'm engaging with it an awful lot less. I'm listening to it an awful lot less. And living more. So what I wish for you listening to know you cannot get your life wrong. And I wish that you could just and will just live all of it, including all the things that Kate just mentioned. Because I used to think I had to get life right. And it was such a narrow band of what was okay for me. And all it really got me was in my noise, in more stories, especially the story that I was getting life wrong. Because it's impossible in my mind for that to happen. I make mistakes. I will, as a human. I will run upstairs. Not the smartest thing to do. And fall. And I wish that everyone knew that living is a gift. And for me to say that, having spent a lot of the first 40 plus years of his life thinking that it was not a gift, the opposite of a gift. That's been life-changing. I remember saying to somebody, a dear friend of mine, in the late 90s, and he mentioned, geez, when you sound like a tortured soul. And I said, that's me. I was wondering what it was. That just makes no sense now. There is no such thing as a tortured soul. And I might think that, and you might think that. But what we think isn't who we are. And if I was to wrap this little bit up, here's what I wish you listening knew. Any feeling that you've got that's not kind towards yourself, is nonsense. Because the truth of who you are, who I am, who Kate is, all of us, the truth of who we really are, is so beautiful, untainted, untaintable. Than any bad feeling that we've got about ourselves. Just cannot have any merit. That's what I wish everyone knew.
Said that about not getting it wrong. And I spoke a little bit about this in the last episode of, just my experience of getting really caught up. And one of the things that I saw for myself through that situation was, and I'd heard people say it, just like you said it, that you can't get this thing wrong, right? But to some extent, I still thought that getting it right was on offer. Because one of the things that I've picked up in my life was that as long as I get it right, I'm safe. As long as I get it right, I'm safe. I'm protected from judgment, other people's judgment, my own judgment. My own insecurities. I don't really have to look at them as long as I'm getting it right. It kept me safe from punishment, getting punished at home. And these are things that I picked up, I think, really early on. It just kept me, as long as I'm the good girl, as long as I'm the pleaser, as long as I don't make mistakes, then I'm okay. As long as I get it right. Now, what's funny is that I didn't realize right was always changing and I was making it up always. But I didn't see that. So I love that you said, you can't get this wrong. And I realized only recently, like, oh, I still think getting it right is on offer, right? Whatever that means at the moment. And if you're one of those people, you're listening to this and that sounds like you as well. Even if you can't, because that's okay too. But you can let go of that. There is a possibility of that just falling away. I would love for our listeners to know that. But that is possible. But there's so much less to do than we think.
Something else occurred to me in listening to you. A previous version of me would have said, well, that sounds great, but I won't get anything done. In life, I won't do as much and I won't do as well at whatever I try. That's what I'd have thought, because I remember thinking that. Here's what I now know to be true, and this is what I wish you listening knew too, really knew. We tend to do better when our attention isn't on ourselves, when we're not trying to live right or prove ourselves. We tend to be mentally, psychologically free. And our presence is therefore, our attention is on whatever the task in the world is. And while this has been quite prevalent in the sports world for quite a while, in performing in sports, and I notice it that in my corporate clients, which is the majority of my work, when someone isn't trying to prove themselves, they just do a better job. When someone isn't trying to be liked, they tend to be really great at building relationships. When someone is genuinely listening to the other person, not to what does this mean to me, or how can I use this, or therefore I will get a good result, be it in sales or a negotiation or in my review with my manager, all of that stuff. All that is noise that distracts us from being present to what is out there. And we all do better at any task when we've got less in our minds and our attention is on that, not this, not the noise, not me. And if that sounds like a nice idea, but just not true, take a look for yourself as you're listening. Maybe even pause this right now and just take a note and just notice when you are doing your best, achieving your highest results, or when things are just working out really great, how much of your attention is on you and how you're doing in life. It won't take long to realize, wait a minute, there's a direct correlation between my presence to out there and my real world results compared to any other way of thinking that's a smart way of being in the world. And as a separate, very different point, the other thing that occurred to me that I've just remembered in listening to your previous share just now, there is no emotion that needs to be afraid of. I do not need to be afraid of any emotion I might feel. I'm afraid of lots of them. I don't need to be. Because I think this is something that you mentioned in probably the previous episode or the one before that about how transitory emotions are because of the thinking that makes them come to life. And thought is transitory in its nature. Every feeling, every emotion I've ever had moves on. And this is a wish for me as well as you listening. I wish I always remembered that the only risk I ever have in life is feeling bad for a while. I wish I remembered that. If I did, I think I'd play full out a lot more than I perceive myself to be.
I think I'll add one more. And this is something that I don't know how much I've seen about this for myself. So, but I think I'll put it out there because I know it's possible. If you're listening to the podcast and there's something that you want to do or say or put out there in the world, but you have a lot of noise about what that looks like and what's possible and who cares about what I think and hasn't it all been said and everything that shows up in our noise. The noise that looks really real that keeps us from moving forward on whatever that is. I know that moving through noise is possible. Hearing it, maybe even believing it, and moving through it. Because to your point, it is transitory. All noise is. And there are people in the world that could benefit from whatever it is you want to put out there. And you don't have to know who they are.
Mm.
We all have our noise. But we also all have a unique voice. So if you're listening, I know that's possible. And maybe you'll hear more from me about it as we move forward in the podcast. I also want to put out there, I know we're trying to wrap up, but I also want to put out there too how much every single one of you who are either watching or listening to this podcast, what that means to Wyn and me. There are some of you that have heard every single podcast, maybe more than once, and I can't tell you what that means to us. So thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your comments and suggestions. And it's so valuable to us.
And if you're one of those people, and I know there's lots of them because I've bumped into some people in the last month or so who listen ardently and never get in touch, we love you too. Sometimes it's really nice to know you exist. So if there's a way of just dropping in to say hi, and including suggestions that you might have. I know we say this on so many of the episodes, suggestions for topics that you'd like us to cover. We've got a few in the bank for the next few episodes. If there's anything that you'd like us to talk about, please let us know. We're always up for that. Or even if it's, hi, I listen. Hi, I've suggested this to my father, because someone's done that recently to me and just said, yeah, it's been really helpful to my dad. It's just like, wow, cool. Thank you for listening. And thank you, Kate,
Thanks,
for
Wyn.
making this something that I thoroughly enjoy and love doing it with you.
Thank you. Me too.
You've been listening to this week's 100th episode of Under the Noise with Kate Roberts and me, Wyn Morgan. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back with episode 101 very soon. Take care and have a great week.
Thanks for joining us. We'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have a topic or question that you'd like us to chat about, email Wyn or Kate at wyn@winning.co.uk and Kate at katerobertscoaching.com. Until then, enjoy what's possible under the noise.